Welcome to One Simple Recipe, where we're hoping to get you one step closer to better health. Today we are continuing to stock your 2025 Healthy Pantry, and we're expanding on fruit. We talked a little bit about adding fruit to your breakfast. Now we're going to be adding more fruit to your desserts, and just in time for Heart Day. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'll put this over to the side. We are making a cheesecake, and it's more like a tart, but it is absolutely delicious, and it's perfect for Valentine's Day because what a great way to celebrate our hearts in a very healthy way. So we're going to start with a crust, and I'll show you how to do it. It's super simple. This entire thing comes together in the food processor. All right. Cup of oats, we know are very heart healthy, great soluble fiber, they're going in. So we're building this crust. We're not really using flour in this crust or graham crackers. It's oats, toasted coconut. We'll talk a little bit about how I did that in a minute. And we are adding about a half a cup of walnuts, another super heart healthy nut that should be part of our eating plan pretty regularly if you are able to tolerate nuts. So the base of this really is our oats, our toasted coconut, and our walnuts. That's what we're going to use to build this cheesecake, in quotations, more like a tart kind of Valentine dessert. Okay, now how we're going to kind of bring it all together. We are going to use 2 tablespoons of melted butter. This is a place where, oil, obviously a little bit more heart healthy, but it just doesn't work as well in creating this crust, and it'll bring a little bit more flavor to the crust, and we're using a whole lot less than would be typically found in a cheesecake crust. And then I think I have a tablespoon of maple syrup that we're just going to add. This is actually 2. I'm going to use half of it because I need the other half for the actual filling. All right, that's going in. That'll add a little bit of touch of sweetness. And then really just a little pinch of salt just to kind of bring the flavors all together. And that's it. All's in. Now we're just going to blend this and bring this all together. So let me get this going. It's going to be a little bit loud. Just bringing this all together, we want it pretty smooth. There's going to be some texture to it, obviously, because of what's in here, because of the nuts and the oats, but just kind of break this up. And we'll talk a little bit how I changed this recipe a little bit up. We're going to try something a little bit different than what I put online. All right, it's almost together. There's going to be some texture in there, but you're going to want it to sort of break down a little bit. Okay, so there's the crust that we're going to use. Let me just take out the blade just for now. All right, now instead of doing this little tart, I did in a springform pan that, you just take out the bottom. The tart is actually sitting on the bottom of the springform pan right now. And that's sort of how the original recipe was made. And I thought, well, maybe for something a little bit more fun, you could do it make them more individual. I've never done this before, so we're just doing it right now. And that way, I think that's always something really fun about just like an individual dessert. So I just have some paper liners in here. I did spray them with some cooking spray because I wasn't 100% sure how this would work. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of this filling, and I don't even know. I'm assuming it's going to make about 12. It might make more than that. But I just have I think this is maybe a tablespoon or 2, a little scoop. And I'm going to just put a little bit in the bottom of each of these paper cupcake liners. And then I'm just going to press it down a little bit. So as far as the toasted coconut, I just used regular unsweetened coconut. And because the oven's on at 350 anyway, because we're going to be baking this, I went ahead and just put the coconut on a little half sheet tray and popped it in the oven. And I kind of just kept an eye on it. Took about 5 minutes or so. I just stirred it once in a while, and I really kept an eye on it because sometimes when you're toasting like nuts and coconut, it can go from being brown to being burnt pretty quickly. So you kind of want to keep an eye on it. So here I have these in, and now I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to press these down a little bit just to form the individual crust. Now, these are going to go into the oven, and the original recipe, if you're making the full tart, it's 350 degrees, and you're going to toast that for about, I think it's like 10 minutes or so, just to to firm up the crust before we put the filling in. I don't think these are going to take 10 minutes. I'm going to probably say 5. So I'm going to go ahead and get these put in. All right, so I just sort of pop, press those down. Let me just pop these in the oven, and I'll set the timer for about 5 minutes, and then we'll just check it. But as far as the toasted, so toasted coconut took about 5 minutes since the oven was on, toasted it up. It makes such a difference to go from just regular coconut to toasted coconut. The flavor is just so much more enhanced. And remember, when you're trying to cook a little bit lighter, and we're changing things up and we're not using quite as much heavy fat in recipes, you really need to take advantage of flavor wherever you can. So that little extra step of toasting coconut can make a big difference in just the overall flavor. So I have some left. So this probably is going to make, I would say, maybe 4 more little tarts. So I'll just set this aside, but I'll just do that later. Oh, actually, you know what? I take that back. Let me just, because I'm going to need this, because this all comes together in the food processor. So I'm going to save I'm just going to take out the remaining of the crust. I'm going to set this aside. And then let me just wipe this out real quick, because you don't have to wash your food processor. Just wipe it out because we're just reusing it for the filling. All right, let me just pop that on. And I'll put my blade back in. I'm just going to wipe that off a little bit. All right, so that's back in. So again, no need to wash. It's so easy. Everything goes in the food processor, so we don't even have really an extra bowl to clean. All right, so that's in. Now, for the crust, for the filling. This is made with ricotta cheese as opposed to cream cheese, and therein lies the big difference when it comes to heart healthy fat. So cream cheese is just so dense and so much fat. It's really not cheese. It's really like eating butter, but just with a different flavor. So there is a tremendous amount of saturated fat in cream cheese. Yes, although delicious in cheesecake, and by all means, if you want to make regular cheesecake, go ahead. But if you do want to lighten it up and just, thinking, a little bit along the lines of something a little bit more heart healthy, then ricotta cheese is a good sub. And you really don't. I have part skim, but as I really looked at the label comparisons for a dessert like this, a full fat ricotta is fine. And not a huge difference between the two. If you're using ricotta cheese a lot, I would say maybe part skim is a better option for you from a heart healthy perspective. But for this dessert, I would say go ahead full fat, which is what I used to make this original tart. But because I have the part skim, I'm just going to go ahead and use it. Either one is fine, but I think the full fat just brings a little bit more creaminess. And the difference between just as a comparison. So saturated fat in an entire day, we probably don't want more than about 10 to 12 grams in a day. And just, a quarter of a cup of cream cheese has 12 grams of saturated fat. Whereas this ricotta only has 5 in a quarter of a cup. So 12 versus 5 is a big difference when we want as little saturated fat in our eating plan as possible, as particularly when we're really trying to focus on heart health. So there's where this nice little swap is good. So whether you're using full fat ricotta or whether you're using part skim, both can work pretty well in this. All right, so what's going in is just the entire filling ingredients. So I put in, this was about 2 cups of ricotta cheese, that's going in. You need a little bit of flour just to bring this and bind this together. This is about a tablespoon of flour. If you wanted to keep this gluten-free, you would use gluten-free oats, and then you would either use your gluten-free flour, substitute, or you could even just use cornstarch, because this is a great dessert that could easily be modified for gluten-free. All right, we're gonna finish up. We're gonna add that final 1 tablespoon of maple syrup in, and then I have a quarter of a cup of just regular granulated sugar. And it calls for 2 eggs, but you know how eggs are these days. You just kind of get what you can get, and they only had jumbo. So I'm only gonna use 1 egg in this. So that's going in. So I think it's just our part skim, our flour, I gotta double check, our egg, our maple syrup. Oh, and then some vanilla and another little pinch of salt, and about a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm using the vanilla paste as opposed to regular extract, which is either one's fine. I just love the paste because you can see some of the vanilla bean in it, which is kind of nice. when you're making it. All right, so that's all going in. So I'm going to go ahead and whirl this around, and we're just using this food processor, bringing it together, just making it creamy, which isn't going to take long. Just, kind of a few seconds here. I might just scrape this down a little bit. All right, let me show this to you. All right, let me just pull this in. I'm going to just turn my timer off, but I think I'm going to let that go just a few more minutes until we're really ready. Now, I mean, the recipe says you're supposed to really cool down the crust a little bit, or before you pour in the filling. I did it when I made this one, and it seems perfectly fine. So I'm not gonna worry about it. When I pull them out, we'll just fill them. And then I'll show this. All right, so that's about it. So here you can see it's nice and creamy. You can see the little flecks of the vanilla bean in there. I love that. All right, and I'm a vanilla girl. I know that Valentine's Day is all about chocolate. But not that I don't like chocolate, I do, but I much prefer vanilla. So that's why I tend to go towards this cheesecake. And I think when you're making desserts, all right, let me pull these out, and I'm gonna just get these ready, so we'll fill them as we're chatting. All right, let me pull these out. Oh, they smell good. It smells really nice. It really does. And they're not gonna really brown that much, but we're just kind of setting them a little bit. All right, so ideally, I guess you can let this cool a little bit. But for the sake of time, we are going to just go ahead and start filling a little bit. But and then I'll just pop them back in. But anyway, so I think when you're thinking about desserts, obviously all desserts are great. But if you're trying to lighten them up, a great way to do it is to just bring fruit into the dessert. So any way you can. So with this, we're putting strawberries as a garnish on top, but I would definitely add strawberries. I would slice up a whole bunch of strawberries and serve them alongside this, because I think that would be delicious. Because it's a nice way to, if you're trying to kind of have a lighter dessert, if you can pair it with fruit, then it kind of allows you to have a little less of the, you can enjoy a smaller portion of the dessert. And you're, pairing it with some fruit, and it just seems then, a lot more satisfying than just eating a smaller piece of dessert, whether it's a richer dessert or a lighter dessert. But I think fruit's just a great way to do that. Fruit by itself certainly can be its own great natural sweet option, just even with a little whipped cream on top, or some great little yogurt and cinnamon. But if you want to just pair it with other desserts, I think that's great. On our website, on judymatesky.com, I pulled up a couple other Valentine ideas for some treats around Valentine's that include fruit. And the one is, what this makes 12. So you're going to have a little extra filling. You're going to have a little extra crust ingredients. But it did use the entire thing. So it makes about 12. So if you want to do individual, this would be an option. And then, save the crust ingredient and just use it as a little sprinkling topping for other things. You can put it on your yogurt and all kinds of things. So I'm going to time this. Obviously, this won't come out before we're done, but I'm just going to time it for about 15 minutes and see. I'll check it. All right. So again, fruits. This again, like I showed you, this is I just did a little decoration with some strawberries, which is interesting because when I went to the market, I went to get strawberries, and obviously because it's Valentine's Day, there were no strawberries to be had. So the only ones they had were these little. They're Pinkaboo strawberries. They're good. They're not quite as good, I think, as just regular red strawberries, but they are kind of cute because they have like this little pink blush to them. So I did that, and then I wanted to show you the slice of this. So again, it's more like a tart. So I think tart rather than like a tall cheesecake, but it does come out really nice and creamy and moist, and then the crust worked really, really well. It is really good. It's not, what I like about it is it's not overly sweet, but it's sweet enough. And then the crust just has this really nice texture. So it reminds you of a cheesecake, but just not quite as heavy. And I think that's kind of nice. I would probably dollop that with a little bit of whipped cream, why not? And maybe even a few shavings of chocolate if you want to go that way. I think that would be pretty cool. So this was one idea. Give it a try. See if you like it. You can certainly make it all year round, but I thought it was kind of fun to do for Valentine's Day. And then if you're looking for some other lighter options, if you want to jump over to judymatesky.com, there are, I did a caramel, it's like a chocolate date caramel, which is delicious, and dates are like the main ingredient there, which are a fruit. They're a fresh fruit from the date palm tree. And also I did some using dried cherries in a chocolate cherry haystack, which is basically dark chocolate with shredded wheat of all things and some dried cherries, but it's so good. That's like almost like a little candy. And the other one reminds you, if you're familiar with turtles, the chocolate date caramel bites are sort of like the turtles that, like have pecan and caramel in them. Those are like an all-time favorite. They've been a pretty big hit for almost every Valentine's Day, so check that out. All right, stocking that healthy pantry for 2025. Let's keep it going. We'll be back next week. We're going to continue on with this, and we're going to talk a lot about lean proteins and how we can utilize all of our fridge, and our freezer to make sure that we're well stocked with those. All right, stay well. Happy Valentine's Day, and anybody that's heading down to the Eagles parade tomorrow, have fun. I'll be there and our family's going to go down, so it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, stay well. Bye-bye.